Welcome to Soto Creations, where we make your imagination a reality. We are starting out this video very excited because we have an event coming up. So I decided to prep the balloons ahead of time so that it makes it easier when I get to the venue and I don't have to spend as much time. Now you'll discover as I go through this that the designs end up changing. So this customer has an event venue that she decorates and does things herself. However, she was out of the country, so she needed someone to do the balloons for her. So she called me to do this, and I was very excited because it's one of the designs I did in the past, and I really wanted to recreate it in this new way. So you've seen me use these colors before. This time they're completely different. Now, talking to her, she initially said she wanted two arches, one at the entrance and one that goes over the Kyrie back wall. I think that's how you say it, I'm not sure. So I started prepping balloons with that in mind, thinking I would do a shorter one and then a longer one for that backdrop. Now, you've seen me explain how to inflate balloons in the past. If this is your first time tuning in, welcome, and I hope you consider subscribing to the YouTube channel and like the video and share as well. So I'm inflating this onyx black in Qualitex, and I also have the purple in Qualitex, and we'll get to the chrome blue, which is a Batalitex, and also there's the same color in Qualitex. So I'm inflating 11 inches and 17 inches and creating clusters of 6 balloons that give a fuller look to the garland. So I'm only putting one of the 17 inches in the cluster, and the rest are all 11 inches or 12 inches. So that's what I'm doing here, just prepping everything. Now, when I get to the venue, I realized that the area she was talking about at the entrance that she wanted the balloons is actually more of a hallway and was narrow. So I had to improvise on the spot, and which took a little longer than what I planned, but it ended up looking beautiful. She was extremely satisfied and really thankful that I came in to fill in for her. So isn't this color just absolutely beautiful? I love it. Now, I had one of you write a comment on one of the videos. I'll have to go back to figure out where it was that they commented, because you wanted me to show how I put together some of the garlands without using the necks to attach the balloons, and you wanted me to use 260 Qs to create the garland. So I'll show that in this video. If you keep watching, I'll explain that part and somewhat compare to my cluster of balloons that I've already created using the 260Q balloons versus this other idea of twisting like this. So I actually recreate a short garland just so you can see what it looks like, and that's why you see me inflating some of the balloons and already forming the clusters, but then I have some of the balloons that I've inflated and I just have pairs. So in order for you to make your garland with just the 260Q balloons, you just inflate your clusters and tie the pairs together. So if you haven't watched my tutorial, when you're creating organic looks, you want to compress and release the air so that you have more of a rounded look for each of your balloons. You do not want the balloons to look egg-shaped or cone shaped. You actually inflate to where they are cone shape, and then you deflate them as you press down to let out the air so they become round. And that's how you want all your balloons to look, because once you assemble them, it's easy for people to spot the ones that are cone shaped, and it's obvious when they are cone shaped and you don't shape them the way they should look elegant and kind of artificial for balloons. So everyone loves the organic look lately, so that's what we're going for this time around. She has the backboards already that we're going to use when we get to the venue. I also take command hooks just in case. Thank God I did, because I needed the command hooks for the wall, so that came in pretty handy. We're also prepping the 5-inch clusters. I use this as filler balloons for my garland. This just adds extra dimension, extra shape, extra texture to the design, and just elevates the whole look. So I'm estimating here that I'm probably gonna need about 9 of the quads. Quads are 4 balloons together, so I'm gonna need about 9 quads of each color just to fill the space. And like I said, when I get there, things change a little bit, but I end up actually using the whole thing because I somewhat underestimated the length of the garland for the main backdrop. So you've already seen the thumbnail. It turns out gorgeous, so you'll see how I put it all together, and I hope you learned something. So I'm doing the same thing with my black balloons, and of course these don't necessarily, I like that the 5-inch balloons have the same size when I'm creating, because it looks awkward if you create those quads and some are smaller than others. But I've become pretty good at eyeballing them so that they're the same. If you're not able to do that, you can use a balloon sizer, but the organic look for the bigger balloons, you don't have to make them the same size. You just kind of inflate and create your look that way. So I'm able to tie the pairs and then just twist them to get each pair together to form quads like I'm doing right now, and that makes things easier when I get to the venue. Sometimes I'm able to also attach my rubber bands ahead of time. My soon-to-be 7-year-old does that for me in the past. This time he wasn't interested in doing this, so I'm just doing it at the venue, and you see how I prep all of that. I'm actually looking for my purple balloon in the 5 inches, but I have no idea what happened to them. And there I find it, and we're gonna get to inflating the rest, and I'll come back to explain to you how I assemble the garland using 260Q balloons. I have my 260Qs, a black one. You've seen these before. What I do is just compress them and it becomes flat. I'll show you closer up what I'm talking about. When they come, they look kind of bubbly and thick. So you want to find your end that is not open. So this one right there, you're going to hold it and just press, as squeeze between your fingers till you get to the end. And this makes the 260Q flat so that it's easier to stretch and you don't have bubbles when it wraps around the balloon. So you're going to take one of your pairs. I'm going to show you how I do this with pairs so that it's easy. You don't have to intertwine, and you don't have to use the necks of the balloons. So I tie my first piece from the closed end, and then you're going to overlap or cross your second piece and just crisscross while you create a figure 8 as you inflate. So that is 6 balloons, and the one on the right is the one I intertwine with my hand, and this is the one we're using, the 260Q. So we're going to continue because the garland is a pattern of the 3 colors. So I'm using the black, I'm using 3 pairs here to create my next design. So you keep intertwining, and you want to pull this time. Now we're kind of short on the 260Q, so you hold that end and take the closed end of a new one and tie that to that open end, and there you have more of the 260Q to add. Again, we're adding pairs of balloons one at a time. This is if you're not interested in intertwining balloons to form your cluster, you can just keep adding. Another thing you can use for this is fishing line. You can create the exact same thing. So I'm gonna stop right here with this part, and because I'm short on my 260Q, I don't want to add another one. I just tie the end, and that is what you have right there, just so it doesn't come apart. I just do a double knot, and you have your garland right there. So now I'm going to show you using necks. I just tie my clusters together. This is my preferred method, but you can practice both and even practice with fishing line and see which one you prefer. I don't create long garlands at home because I want them to be able to fit in my bags that I carry, and it makes it easier for me to transport. So I'll show you how I package everything. Of course, I decided this time around to start separating the colors I take to the venue in separate bags. So those are the 3 bags, because lately I end up where when I get home, I don't want to, it's just easier for me to pack the balloons away when I get back if I separate them. Now these are my U-Haul bags. They're the mattress bags from the U-Haul store. I buy the queen size or the full, and you always put your 5-inch balloons in the bag first because those are the balloons you use last. So I make sure those go on the bottom of the bag so that my balloons don't get dirty when I get to the venue, and it's easier for me to take out the garland that I've inflated and the cluster of balloons, and then at the very end I can pull the 5-inch balloons from the bag to use. Let's head to the venue. This is the venue. Now this is the hallway I was talking about. She wants an arch right there, so it's pretty narrow, which means I cannot use those hefty balloons that I inflated from home to put right there. Otherwise we won't be able to get through when the guests come because the arch is going all around. That means I end up having to inflate new balloons. You can see them all aligned on the table there. They are the 12-inch balloons in the same colors, and I'm creating 6 clusters of 6 balloons and alternating color to form my arch. I did this so that again I can have an arch where people can still walk through and it's not a clutter or where you cannot get through. So I had to inflate this here. Of course, it took way longer the time of installing than I planned because I thought I would just have the balloons to use. But at the end of the day, the main backdrop was longer than I estimated. So most of the balloons I inflated ended up going towards that backdrop. I mean the ones I inflated at home. So I also have some centerpieces that I'm going to be putting together. I'll show you how I put those together. Not very hard. I just inflate the 11 inches to about a 7-inch create pairs of each one, so total of 6 balloons that are represented, and tie them to the end of the centerpiece. I'll show you that here shortly, but I'm just working fast as I can so I can get this done. This is in the evening and I was planning to be here a maximum of 2 hours. I ended up being here an extra hour because I had to improvise. So you can see where I'm prepping everything, adding the colors, and just creating a longer garland, trying not to drop the garland so that it doesn't get dirty. But I just keep extending until I estimate that I would have about enough balloons to form my arch. And I realize here that I missed the color scheme or the color pattern, so I have to take things apart and regroup and figure out which ones I twisted, which ones were not aligned. So pretty much both have to come apart and I have to redo the whole pattern. So just pay attention when you're doing that. I don't know if it would be noticeable, but I probably as a guest would notice it knowing who I am. So I have to fix it. So there is most of our garland. We're gonna estimate if it's gonna fit. But before we do that, I'm going to show you the command hooks I use. They have a closed end right there. So what I do is I just thread my 260Q through that like a needle and thread, and then I tie it to that so that it's nice and secure. It does not come off. If you use a command hook that is open on the end, or you just tie this without threading it through, more than likely it's going to come loose because the balloon is going to tug on it and it'll slip right through. So I'm prepping 4 of these command hooks. I'm going to put 2 on each side of the walls, and I will use those to attach my arch on. So you can see as I tie. Another thing you can do is you can create a loop, so when you go through that the needle, I say needle so you understand what I'm talking about. When you loop that through, what you do is you just tie the very end of the 260Q to the close end to the open, and that creates a circle and a loop. So instead of you wrapping your 260Q around, you just put it on a balloon and it's easy. So these are the center pieces. I'm using the necks of the balloons that I've created, 2 of each color, to just wrap around one of the corners and double tie so that we have the center pieces. Very straightforward, very simple there, and it adds some elegance and that same pop of color to the full decor. Sadly, I didn't get the opportunity to see the final look, but these are the command hooks you see on the wall. Of course, we need a good enough height so that we can attach the balloons. So here we go, our first design. So I'm carrying this arch over. I'm going to start on the bottom left corner. I'll just pull that 260Q well enough that it'll pull the balloon towards the wall. So the goal here is not to be slacking on that arch. You want to pull the 260Q well enough that it attaches that balloon to the wall. You adjust your balloons so that they are firm with the wall. If you feel like you can't do this part, you can always add more command hooks, and make sure you're using command hooks that are safe on wall paint, which this one is. It's easy to get off. So I brought my other pieces to attach, and that is the end of this garland. I did not add any of the 5-inch clusters. We are on to our second design. So this is the backdrop that's already at the venue. This is the picture she sent with this backdrop, pretty much the same design she did. The only difference was mine was a little fuller, but that's just my touch to the whole backdrop, but she absolutely loved it. I'm checking the picture she sent to make sure that I do and deliver what she asked me to do. So I'm attaching my 260Qs onto her backdrop. She has the exact same type of command hooks that I showed you, except the base of hers are clear. A lot of times these command hooks are a lot stronger than the ones I showed you, and they don't come off easily. So I'm attaching my 260Q. She already had them on there, and then I will start to assemble. We had to tilt the backdrop a little bit, but I'm pulling out my clusters and I'm going to start attaching it to the backboard. So you can see me here looking for the other pieces, figuring out what color comes next, and then estimating where I want it to go. And I realized that bottom part needs another command hook to be able to hold the balloon, the base of that garland, in place. So I'm doing that right there with the permission of the event person's colleague. So she was right there. I had to get permission to attach another command hook, and we have that in place. I didn't hold it long enough for it to stay in place, so later on you'll see it come off, but I fix it again. So with these boards, the design she wants pretty much has to lay on the backdrop. So what I do here is somewhat tuck the balloon where it's in between, where the board goes in between my balloon garland. So you see it kind of lays over it, and in a way also connects the 3 arches you see, wooden arches you see back there. So I'll let you enjoy how I put the rest of this together. It's pretty detailed, and you just see how I keep adding the clusters, and towards the end just put the filler balloons, and I'll show you the big reveal at the end. Thank you so much for watching. Again, don't forget to subscribe. It really supports this channel. If you're new here, I notice most of the people watching are not subscribed. I would appreciate if you would support the channel by subscribing and clicking the notification bell so you don't miss any future videos that I post. Thank you guys so much. Enjoy the rest of the video.